Not too many years ago, I was the chair of the Christian Studies Department at Shorter University. I developed a curriculum while I was there and taught it to my upper level students. A curriculum entitled Ministry Dynamics. Now, believe it or not, I had 5 textbooks for that course. And in addition to everything else my students had to do, they had to do a report on each one of these 5 books, do some kind of a review. And man, they were just moaning and groaning about all of it. And I said, look, this is not the 8th grade. This is upper level bachelor's work. Well, the text, 5 of them, the first 4 you would expect. One of the texts was entitled Inside Information, Resolving Controversies in Baptist Churches. Now, I've never been in a Baptist church that's had a controversy. I'm sure you haven't either. But I thought that book might be helpful for them, written by John Mazzagno. Another textbook was Answering the Call, 100 Pastoral Profiles. And then the third book was 7 Practices of Effective Ministries by Andy Stanley, Reggie Joyner, and Lane Jones. And then Pastoral Ministry According to Paul, a Biblical Vision. A terrific textbook on pastoral ministry that could be summed up in one sentence. The purpose of ministry is the transformation of lives. And that is, of course, our purpose here. But the 5th book, one that you might be surprised to see on the syllabus of an upper level ministry dynamics course. Certainly my students were surprised by it, and yet I would say to you that this particular book was probably, out of all those books, the most important book of them all. And let me show you what it was. It was a book entitled Gung Ho. It is a book designed for leaders and employees of businesses. Well, once in a while, I'll pick up a great book that is written by someone who really has a lot of neat things to say about companies and businesses and successful ways of getting things done. Because, listen, all truth is God's truth. If it's truth, it belongs to God. And there's always something to learn. One great book I've read is entitled Jesus, Entrepreneur. If you ever find that book somewhere, you ought to get it, you ought to read it. It will impact your life. Well, I picked up this book, I started to read it, and I said, you know, everything that is being said in this book is something that I am already practicing in ministry, already practicing as a pastor. It goes about it in a little bit different way, but the truth of the matter is, of the 5 books, this one was probably the most important. Why? Because it teaches you how to turn on the people in any kind of an organization or group, even a church. And as I read, I said, listen, this is what I've been doing for years and years as a pastor. I said, this would make a great textbook for a ministry dynamics class. And so I put that on our reading list, had them read it, and do a review of it. Now, I don't have time to take you through the entire book, but basically, this book says 3 things. First of all, it talks about the spirit of the squirrel. Now, the spirit of the squirrel teaches us that if a company, an organization, a business, even a ministry is going to have success, then the people are going to have to look at the work they do as worthwhile work. God created us to work. We have a need to work. But we want to feel that our work is worthwhile. And worthwhile work means we know that what we are doing makes the world a better place. And in addition to that, it is everybody working toward the same goal. I just want to read you a little bit out of this book in talking about making the world a better place through the spirit of the squirrel. Now listen to this. How can most jobs be so important that they change the world? Nurses in hospitals, relief workers, scientists, working for drug companies, I can see. This was the reply to her. It's a different mindset. It's learning to see what you do, what you're accomplishing in people terms. So then he asked this woman who was managing a company, what is the most meaningless job you've ever had? And this is what she said. That's easy. I washed dishes in the cafeteria at college. I assure you, it wasn't meaningful work. And she goes on to comment, dishwashing was as meaningless as work could ever be. I remember trays of dirty dishes coming in on the conveyor belt. I scraped, I put them in the washer, I piled the clean ones. I was confident the work was meaningless, but the smile on Andy's face made me slightly uneasy. And this is what Andy said. Dishwashing in a college cafeteria, it just doesn't get more important than that. Think of the impact those students are going to have on the world. Business leaders, doctors, social scientists, world leaders, researchers. One load of unclean, bacteria-infested dishes could have wiped out a whole class. Look at it in terms of human impact, not units dealt with. If you don't believe dishwashing contributes to the well-being of humankind, I can take you to a couple of spots in the world where dishes don't always get properly washed. One meal will quickly change your mind. Students arrive at the cafeteria, tired, hungry, likely lonely. You were an important part of the chain that provided joy and nourishment in their lives. I know I usually have great joy when I sit down to eat. I always look forward to it. What a wonderful gift to give another human being. Then he goes on to say, our whole economy depends on mobility, being able to participate beyond the range of our picnic baskets. Sanitary eating conditions, clean dishes, eating safely away from home, that's at the very foundation of our civilization. It all depends on looking at it clearly. And this is what gets people gung-ho. Most any job has social value. If it's digging ditches, answering telephones, designing golf courses, manufacturing wire baskets. Once people begin to see their work clearly, big things begin to happen. Bashing a chunk of metal and grinding it into conformity with an engineering drawing is one thing, but making a part for a brake on a child's bicycle is entirely different. You mess up the first, you're off spec. You mess up the second, you might break a child's leg. What we're really talking about is one of the world's most powerful emotions. It's called self-esteem. Understanding how your work fits into the big picture. That is the beginning of gung-ho. That's the way of the squirrel. No matter what we do, it is work with dignity and honor. It is work that makes a difference in somebody else's life, even if it is keeping the dishes clean. Then there is the way of the beaver. The way of the beaver is all about achieving the goal. And for the way of the beaver, there needs to be clearly marked territory. Where am I working? Thoughts, feelings, needs, dreams are respected, listened to, and acted upon. And people need work that they are able to do, but they are also challenged as well, that they stretch themselves beyond the capacity. If you've ever seen a beaver do work on a dam, or if you've ever seen several beavers working on a dam, you will see that there really seems almost to be no one in charge. But each one of those beavers is doing what they do, some with big limbs, some with small twigs, all in different ways, putting them in different places, doing what they can do, but then they achieve the goal. And when one of the beavers does something, another one doesn't come along and tear it out and say, we can't have that there. The way of the beaver, said another way, is everyone doing what they do best. Have you ever heard anybody talk about that here at Countryside? Everybody doing what they do best. And then there is the gift of the goose. And really, this is my favorite one because I'm pretty goosey. And you're going to know what I'm talking about in just a moment. Have you ever seen geese flying into a lake? And as they are flying into the lake, what are they doing? Honking. Honk, 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 honk. Let's all start honking. Come on. Honk, 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 honk. Yeah, it sounds about just like that. Or if they're taking off from the water, what are they doing? Honking, 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 honking. Well, do you know what they are really doing? They are cheering each other on. And it's not just cheering the results, it is cheering the progress along the way. This is critically important for the success of any organization or group or club or ministry, cheering others on. Another word for this would be the word enthusiasm. Did you know that's a word for me? That should have been my middle name. Enthusiasm. I'm a cheerleader. I've always been a cheerleader. I'm going to always be a cheerleader. You need somebody to cheer you on. I am your guy. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is more important than the first two because without enthusiasm, nothing really catches on fire. And we got to have a lot of honkers running around here if we're going to be everything that God wants us to be. Now, I sort of summed this book up like this. The spirit of the squirrel is the employee's gift to the company or the group or the organization or to the ministry. The way of the beaver is God's gift to the employees or those who work within that group or that company. And then the gift of the goose is the employee's gift to each other. What's the best gift I can give to you? Encouragement. Just come honking along and helping you go forward. Now, let's review just a second the spirit of the squirrel. Worthwhile work. Knowing we make the world a better place. Everyone works toward a shared goal. I told you earlier that all truth is God's truth. And while this is a business book, this is a book on leadership, the truth of it actually comes right from God's Word. For example, Isaiah chapter 55. The prophet says, why do you spend money for what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me. Eat what is good. Jesus said something similar in John chapter 10, verse 10. I came that they might have life, and they might have it abundantly. You know, once people's basic needs are met, of housing, clothing, and food, if that's all there is, they really don't have much purpose in their lives. There's something more. It's called feeding the soul. It's called making a difference in the lives of the people around us. In fact, our logo now says Countryside Baptist Church, helping life make sense. Now, there's a whole lot of other things that we do. But if my experience of the last 40 years in pastor work and if my experience as a man teaches me anything, people are inundated by the craziness of life. They are confused by everything that is coming at them from different directions. They want life to make sense. Did you know that's what we're all about here at Countryside? Life making sense, beginning with Jesus Christ and putting His principles and precepts to work in our lives. See, you bring friends here. You bring neighbors here. They're going to walk away from this worship experience saying, now that makes sense. That helps me at the deepest level of life. That's what we're doing here today. We want to reach more and more people with the wisdom of the ages and help life make sense, even the most difficult part of it. And again, with the spirit of the squirrel, Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 6, the people had a mind to work. Now, Nehemiah's name is on the book. But how much success would Nehemiah have had rebuilding the wall around Jerusalem if it were just Nehemiah? Key to the success of putting a protective hedge around Jerusalem was the people getting involved and working. And that wall around Jerusalem was completed in an astonishing 53 days. Unbelievable. They had to fight through this obstacle, then that obstacle, this opposition and that opposition. But the people had a mind to work. And when you find a church where people have a mind to work, you're going to see great things happen. And folks, I want to tell you, that's what I discovered here at Countryside Baptist. I discovered a congregation where the people have a mind to work. We completed phase 1 in 5 months. Our goal was 6 months. We completed it in 5 months. You know why? Because people had a mind to work. It was exciting. And it was exciting for me to be right in there in the middle of all their working. See, this is Bible. Gung-ho does not say that it's Bible, but it's Bible. Because all truth is God's truth. And if you want to prosper and have success, then you have to do it God's way. Remind you about the way of the beaver, achieving the goal. Everyone doing what they do best. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul writes there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of ministries, and the same Lord. There are varieties of effects, but the same God who works all things in all persons. But to each one is given the manifestation of the Spirit. What is the manifestation of the Spirit? The gift, the ministry, and the power that goes along with it. They've been given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. Even as the body is one and yet has many members, so also is Christ. For the body is not one member but many. For the body, if the foot says, because I'm not a hand, I'm not a part of the body, is it not for this reason any the less a part of the body? And if the ear says, because I'm not an eye, I'm not a part of the body, it is not for this reason any the less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, could you imagine that? The entire body being an eye? That would be pretty dumb looking, wouldn't it? If the whole body were an eye, then where would the sense of smell be? But now God has placed each of the members, each one of them in the body, just as He desired. If they were all one member, where would the body be? But now there are many members, but one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, or again, the head to the feet, I have no need of you. See, we are all needed. All doing what we do best. Well, about all I can do is wash dishes. Now, we've already talked about that. No more excuses about low self-esteem. All I can do is sweep off the sidewalk out front. Do you know how important that is? Well, all I can do is stay with the children. Do you know how important that is? Well, all I can do is attend church. Well, then bless God, attend church. Do you know how important it is for you to be here when those doors are open? Doesn't it always lift your spirits when you walk into a room and the room is full? Sure. If there were 4 people in the choir instead of the 20 that were up here today, even if these 4 people sang great, just looking at 4 people instead of 20, what would that do for you? Well, is this a hard question? It would depress you. You want to lift up my spirit? Be in these seats. You want to lift up the spirits of the people who sit around you? Be in those seats. You want to give the devil a black eye? Be in these seats. If that's all you can do, then do it with all of your might. But we've got people doing all kinds of things here. We've got leaders, we've got followers, we've got workers, we've got maintenance people, we have folks working in the yard, we have folks using paintbrushes, we have people making posters and advertisements and putting up goalposts. We've got so many things going on around here, it would make your head spin just to know it. And we get it all done with volunteers. Now, you try doing that in a company. You try doing that with volunteers. It won't work. But it's different here. It's each one of us doing what we do best, making a phone call, writing a letter, praying. Whatever it is, inviting your neighbor to come and be a part of what God is doing here. And then there's the gift of the goose. Do you remember the gift of the goose? It is cheering others on. And it's not just the results, it is the progress as well. And we've been doing that for the last 6 months in phase 1. Every week or 2 weeks, we had a progress report about what we were doing and what we were accomplishing, and we celebrated it. And we bragged on people, and we patted them on the backs, and we gave them attaboys. And people like that. Don't you like an attaboy? Hello? Are you with me? Sure you do. You think I don't like attaboys? I love it. You do too. We've had that going on for a long time here, being encouragers, your gift to the people who are around you. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 says, let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds. These things don't come naturally. Verse 25 says, how are you going to stimulate others? By encouraging one another. I just don't know what God wants me to do today. How about encouraging the first person you see? How about encouraging the waiter or the waitress who waits on you and leaving a good tip? How about asking them as they are at the table, you know, we're about to say the blessing here. We're going to pray. You got anything you'd like for us to pray about in your life? And 99.9% of the time somebody say, well, yeah. And you have encouraged that person for the entire day. It is encouragement, 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 encouragement. Listen to me. If you don't have anything encouraging to say, just shut up. Does that make sense? Now, I'm going to sum up what I've said to you today, and here it is. The spirit of the squirrel. This is the believer's gift to the church. Working, 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 working. And then there's the way of the beaver here. God's gift to each believer. Every person here has a gift, has a ministry, has a platform, has the power of God in their lives. And whatever you do best, we want you to do. And if you work well with big limbs, or knocking down big trees, or just small branches or twigs, that's what we want you to do. You do what you do best. And then there's the gift of the goose. That's the believer's gift to each other. That's the best thing you can do for anybody you see all through the day. You didn't know you were going to learn something today from squirrels and beavers and geese, did you? But those are creatures that all belong to God. And as you watch these creatures do their thing, they teach us something about successful organizations, groups, and ministries. This is critical stuff. Because I want to tell you, I believe that God has brought me here to lead this congregation back to the future. Everything that we're looking at, phase 1 that's completed, phase 2, phase 3 that will come down the road, phase 4 farther down the road. It's all just been things that this congregation has said they wanted to do for decades. And now we're doing it. We're just doing it. All this congregation needed was somebody crazy enough, lunatic enough, to stand up and say, let's do it. And look what's happening. And it's not me. It's we. Because it's not about Connell. It's about what God does in and through our lives as a body, as the body of Christ, making a difference in the life of Clearwater. Has this church made a difference in your life? Has this ministry made a difference in your life? Then go out and tell somebody about it. If this ministry has not made a difference in your life, you know what? It is either us, in which case you need to go find you a ministry where you can be encouraged and blessed, or your head's not screwed on right. I mean, it can only be one of the two, right? If it's not us, it's you. If it's not you, it's us. But I get up every day expecting to bless someone. And if I'm not a blessing to the folks I'm around, I'm disappointed in my day. Because that's biblical. God blesses me, I'm going to bless other people. Have I said that to you before? Yes. That is the gift of the goose. Refresh, renew, restore. Notice the refresh, renew, restore. It's back to the future. We are refreshing our facilities. We are renewing our commitment. And we are already restoring ministries that this body of believers once had, but they ceased. Do you see? Now, where are we going to go from here? Well, I hope that this church is going to be gung-hoed. Gung-ho are two Chinese words that mean working together. We want to be a gung-ho church. And part of that is what we are doing now in launching phase 2. Every one of you should have a card like this in your seat. Everybody got that? You will notice on one side it says phase 1, and you see all those boxes. What is characteristic of those boxes? They're check, 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 check. That's done. Now, turn that card over and it says phase 2. What's characteristic of those boxes? They are not checked. By the end of 12 months from today, what do we want to see happening with all these boxes? Check, 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 check. See, our territory has been outlined. The boundaries, the field of play, we know what they are. And now we're going to work, each and every one of us, doing what we do best to get that done. And we're going to be encouraging the heck out of people. Can I say the heck? I can say the heck. We're going to be encouraging the heck out of people all along the way, not disingenuinely, but genuinely. because this is who we're called to be. Now, what I would like for you to do is to take this card that's been put together by our publicity committee and long range, listen, all kinds of people, long range planning committee, church council, publicity committee to make this happen. I want you to put this on your refrigerator so you can be reminded of everything that we're looking forward to in the next year. And if you say, well, I don't have a magnet, we're going to give you a magnet Wednesday night. You'll have to come back to get it. That's all about phase 2. Until then, just use a little piece of Scotch tape, put it up there. You know, like we do on the doors and windows here. And remind yourself, this is going on my refrigerator, our refrigerator. And it will stay there until it's time to get another card that says phase 3.